Well, shooters and reloaders out there, Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone. And I was originally going to do this video for my 3 Circles Patreon channel. But the material here is important enough that it needs to get out for a kind of a shooter's public safety message. And so it all started when I looked in my Lyman 49th edition Reloading Handbook, and this was published in 2008. I also have the 50th anniversary, which was published in 2016. And they're both the same. There's something very interesting in this reloading manual that I want to show you right now. When you turn to the part on the 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge, that's a very popular law enforcement round. Not quite as much as it was before, but still pretty popular. And popular among the civilian shooters as well. But again, not quite as popular as before, but still a lot of 40 cal guns out there. And most of them are Glocks. Anyway, when you get right down to the end of the description here, it has a warning. And this warning only shows up in the 40 Smith & Wesson. If you look at other cartridges in the whole book, doesn't have this warning. Not even the 357 SIG round, which is built off the 40 caliber case and necked to 357 caliber. That one has pressures that SAMI takes to 40,000 psi. That's more than the 35,000 SAMI maximum pressure for the 40 Smith & Wesson, but this warning doesn't show up in the 357 SIG or any other cartridge, just the 40. Let's look at this warning. So here's the warning in bold print. Only use this data in handguns that fully support the cartridge in the chamber. If used in unsupported chambers, cases can rupture and cause harm to the shooter or bystanders. This same warning is also in the 50th edition of the Lyman Reloading Handbook, but it doesn't show up on any other cartridge anywhere in these 2 issues. What you see here is my SIG 2022 in 40 caliber, and I've taken the barrel out so we can check out this issue about the case support. Let's look at this under magnification. So here you see the critical area where the case head can be unsupported. Because right here, the web of the case that's underneath here is still fully covered by the steel. So the steel supports the brass. Now the powder compartment where the combustion's occurring, where all the pressure is happening, is not exposed, because if it's exposed there, then if that brass is weak, that's the only thing holding that pressure back. There's no steel supporting that if this is cut away even deeper in. Now, why is this done? Back in the IPSC days, we used to relieve this area of our chambers to improve feeding so that we wouldn't get jams. And that's the thing about Glock chambers. The Glock chambers are oversized in the first place, and the area right here is cut back severely so that the feeding reliability is enhanced tremendously, but at the cost of case head support. So it's like this. If you heavily chamfer the mouth of the chamber, then the round goes in a lot easier. But the problem is you're not supporting the brass where all the pressure is being developed. And if that brass is weak, especially like it's reloaded brass that's been fired before, or brass that's been stressed so that it's got a little smile there, you've heard the Glock smile, and then we take those smiles and we size them back down with our special dies and this kind of thing, and then go ahead and reload it again. That brass is still weak there, and if it winds up being unsupported again, it can blow. And that does happen. It has happened. Now, there was a time back in 2008 when we heard about Glock kabooms on a regular basis. But seems like we're not hearing about them as much now. But if you look into the internet, you'll find that they're just happening as often as before. You're just not hearing about it as much. So this is still a problem. And it happens especially in .40 caliber. And that's why Lyman actually puts that warning only on the .40 Smith & Wesson cartridge in their reloading manuals. Really, when you look at this warning, Lyman could have simply put the warning as Glock warning, because that's what they're talking about. Now, there happen to be some other brands that have unsupported chambers too, and it behooves all of us to know if we have unsupported chambers or not, so we need to check them out. This SIG barrel has a supported chamber. No problem, I can shoot the reloads and everything else with confidence in this chamber. Now, if I have a Glock, and I do have Glocks, but no .40 cal, we can get aftermarket barrels that have supported chambers, and this is really critical in the .40 caliber. But I go one step farther. I have the aftermarket barrels in my 9mm, my 45 ACP, even though it's a low pressure round, and people say that, well, you shouldn't have to worry about it. Well, it shoots lead bullets better because it has cut rifling also. So I like my aftermarket barrels not just for safety, but for the fact that I can shoot my cast bullets just fine. So that takes care of the issue on the unsupported chamber. But there are other reasons for Glock kabooms also, let's be fair. And that is reloading practices that are faulty. If we double charge a case, we're asking for trouble. If we don't provide a good crimp, then we're asking for trouble. Because what happens is, now this happens to be a factory round, but if our taper crimp is inadequate, then as the round hits the feed ramp, and whether it hits the feed ramp or not, if anything causes that bullet to be pushed into the case, then we have a situation where we reduce the powder space and increase the pressure. And if we're close to maximum or at maximum loads, then we can easily go over maximum and then have problems with the case blowing up. So loading hot or loading with faulty bullets that might raise pressure, say a bullet's too big or the seating depth is not good, say we start by seating it too deep, that's not good. So anything that causes pressures to rise might be dangerous if we're close to maximum loads. All of these things need to be considered to reduce the chance of us getting any kabooms, especially in our Glocks, and I like my aftermarket barrels. You'll remember that back in 2008 there was a lot of guesswork going on about the causes of Glock kabooms. Some were saying it was because the polygonal rifling was fouling and the fouling was raising pressures, and then there was some discussions going on about the fact that right at the beginning of the rifling where the chamber ends and meets the barrel, that the fouling there was causing pressures to go up, or that was causing the gun to fire a battery. Doesn't happen. So now you don't hear about those causes, those guesses anymore, because it's pretty well known that we're looking at either the oversized chamber, the heavily throated, unsupported case head here, or faulty reloading practices. Now, the Gen 4s and Gen 5s, those are blowing up too. But probably not as much of a rate, because it's quite possible that Glock has tightened up the chambers a little bit in the Gen 4 and Gen 5s, but the kabooms are still happening. They happen even with factory ammo. So there's all kinds of things going on, but most of the causes are from the unsupported case head and from faulty reloading practices. And the .40 caliber is still where most of the kabooms are happening. So it's Fortune Cookie 45 LC wishing you good, safe, enjoyable, joyful shooting. And That can only happen if the guns function properly and our ammunition functions properly. So good shooting to all of you out there. Bye for now.